Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel. And I'm going to teach you how to build iOS applications by today looking at the Facebook Chat Messenger application that you can find on the Apple App Store. And so I'm going to show you the the demo of what we're going to be building today. And look at the screen here. We have a friends list with all of your friends with their images and name and chat messages and whatnot. And upon clicking, we'll get the actual chat log. So I'm going to focus on building this first screen here with the UI collection view. And I'm going to go ahead and go into the Xcode and create a new project by hitting Command-Shift-N, bringing the single view application in here. Just call it Facebook Messenger for now. And make sure to click this Use Core Data box, as we will be using core data in a future video to build the application and save the messages onto the core data disk. So having created the app, I'm just going to hit run, and we'll get this white screen here, which is always good because without the white screen, our application is not going to work. So let me just drag over this Xcode for a little bit more space, and let's see, what do I want to do now? So first thing I want to do is I want to build this without using storyboards because it's a little clumsy to go through the interface builder widget. So I'm going to go ahead and hit delete on that storyboard, just move it to trash. Next thing to do is to remove the main interface like that, and then go to the app delegate to actually do what the storyboard does for you. So you need to build the window like this with a frame of UI screen, main screen.bounds, and then you have to make it visible by doing that. Finally, you have to set the root view controller on that window with a navigation controller of some kind. This requires another root view controller. So we're just going to call this friends controller, and it has to equal something. So this will be friends controller like that. And so the next question is, what is friends controller? And that's going to be this file here that I'm going to modify just like that. And we're going to call this UI collection view controller. And let's just remove this line here. And then what I'm going to do next is actually change the collection view background like this. So I'm going to use the color of red just to show you what happens when I put it inside of the navigation controller. So I'm going to build friends controller comes to me like that. And the final step is to actually specify a layout like this up here of UI collection view flow layout. And having set up all this, we've now completed the work that the storyboard does for us by simply introducing the view controller ourselves. So that looks pretty good. And I'm going to go back to the application that we have here. And what we want to do now is just simply return a couple of rows inside of our collection view. And hopefully you guys know how to do that. If not, I'm going to walk you through exactly the necessary steps. So first thing to do is I want to return the 3 rows, right? And to do that, you do an overwrite of the number of items in section method and just return a 3. The next thing to do is actually return a view for the cell. And inside of cell for item at index path here, you want to return a dequeued cell from the collection view like this. And use a cell identifier of just cell ID, index path. And then we need to create the cell ID up here. So cell ID equals cell ID. And while we're at it, let's make it a private variable like that, just to keep it safe and away from outside classes. And finally, we have to register a collection view cell like this. And this cell class will be our cell class that represents a row inside of our friends list. So I'm going to call that down here class friend cell. And this will be a UI collection view cell like that. And in here, we actually have to override 2 methods. So whenever a cell is dequeued by the collection view, it actually calls init with frame. And we're going to set up some views here. So set up views. And first, let me fix this required initializer there. And then we need to specify setup views as a separate function down below. Cool. So the remaining step to get all of this working is to actually register this friend cell like that. So friend cell.self, and this needs to be that cell ID. Cool. So before I run this, I want to change the background color of each cell to something that is easily recognizable, like blue color like that. And I'm just going to run, and you're going to be able to see 3 blue cells upon running, and it's on top of the red background. So now that I no longer need the red background, I'm just going to specify a color of white. And then I want to actually expand these cells to the entire width of the collection view. So to do that, you have to conform to the delegate flow layout like that. And now you can actually provide a method for the size of the cell. Let's go to the last layout method here, size of specified item cell, and I'm going to return CG size make of view frame width, and let's just do 100 for now for the height. Having run that, we get 100 height blue cells, and they all span the entire width of the collection view frame. So that's pretty good. You notice if I drag it, it doesn't move up and down. So I'm just going to specify always bounce vertical to true. And that's going to allow me to drag it up and down. And so that's what I mean. The next thing I want to do is I want to plop these images inside of each row. And I'm going to easily do that by adding the image view with some constraints. So the first thing I want to do is I want to actually remove some of these unnecessary methods in here, just to make the code a little bit cleaner and easier to read for you guys. So I'm going to create a base cell class, just like this. And then I'm going to copy some of these methods here. So I'm going to cut that, paste that in here, subclass that cell as a friend cell. And then now we have to actually, let's see, copy that over as well. Okay. And if we do this, let's see, so this needs to override that set of views down here now, and then we are good to go. So now instead of all this unnecessary code, we just have set of views inside of our friend cell. And now what we want to do is to create this image view inside of this cell that will represent this profile image view for your friend. I'm going to do that by creating a profile image view like this. And this is all done through code. Hopefully it will seem easier. So UI image view, content mode will have to be scale aspect fill. And that just maintains the aspect ratio as you want to size your image to fill up the entire frame. So let's just return that image view like that. And let's see, what do we want to do? So let's fix this compiler error here. This actually needs to be an equal like that. And let's add it onto the cell's subview hierarchy by just simply adding profile image view like that. And then what do we want to do? So to get it onto this cell here, we need to add it as a constraint like this. And I'm going to type out the NS layout constraints with this visual format. And I'm going to explain to you what this means in just a little bit. So NS layout format options like this, nil. And we need to provide a views dictionary like so. So what is V0? V0 is going to be our profile image view. And I'm going to do the vertical constraints right now and explain to you what this kind of means. So horizontal from the left edge to the right edge like this, the view of V0 will expand entirely left to right. And then likewise, vertically from top to bottom with this profile imagery here. So I'm gonna run that, and then hopefully you'll see something, maybe nothing for now. Okay. The next thing you have to actually do is you actually have to set the constraints to actually use them. So to do that, we do translates auto resizing mask into constraints equals false. And one more thing I want to do is actually provide an image. So your image named something. So this is actually going to render an actual icon image for your friend. And the string will be something that we have to import like this. So I am going to open up Finder here, and we're dragging the Mark Zuckerberg profile picture like this. Okay, opening up our assets catalog, we just import an asset like that, and that file is called Zuck profile. Let's see, no underscore like that, and let's just run. Okay, now we get something that is really, really not so pretty. So I'm going to fix that by showing you this. So I remove this right pipe like that, and just include a horizontal width of 68, and then a vertical height of also 68, like that. Now I'm just going to run it and show you what I get. Okay. So from the left and from the top, we get 68 pixels wide and 68 pixels tall. Not too difficult. And I'm going to remove the blue color since we have a reference as to where our elements are sitting inside of our collection view right now. Okay, now going back to the application that we've built previously, we have this rounded corner, or rounded a radius of about we're going to use 34 and let's see what we get. So what I mean is you can specify image view.layer corner radius of 34, and we have to actually set image view.layer mask to bounds to true. So I'm getting this 34 value from half of 68, and that'll give me a perfectly round circle. And now that I have that, I'm going to push it a couple of pixels from the left and maybe 14 pixels from the left edge. So let's do 14 like that, and 14, possibly 12. Let's see how that looks like. And there we go. Not too bad. And let's see. The next thing I want to do is I want to add this little separated line at the very bottom, and I'm going to call it a divider line view. So divider line view equals UI image, actually UI view. Let view equals UI view. Background color is just some color. I'm going to use white of 0.5, alpha of 0.5, and return this view like that. So now I'm going to add that divider line view as my subview. And then I have to actually specify the translates constraints equals false. And here, okay, for the constraints for this divider line, I want to do this. So I want to expand it horizontally with these visual format constraints. I'm going to say from the horizontal left edge of, let's see, it's going to be 12 plus 68 plus another 12 to provide some type of equal padding. So that's going to be 82, like that. And let's just say V0 is going to extend to the right edge, and this will be NS layout format options, nil, and then we'll say V0 is this divider line view. And finally, for its, let's just put it down here. Let's make our grouping for these constraints a little bit prettier. And let's just put that there. And for the vertical constraints, we'll say v0 belongs at the bottom edge with height of 1 pixel, like that. So having that, we now get this nice divider line at the bottom of the cell so that it gives us a better frame of reference as to where we want our labels. Now, let's see, it looks like I'm missing the title for the nav bar, which I'm going to change right now. So navigation item dot title, and it is going to be recent for the actual string. Cool, looks good. Now, the next thing I want to do to make our lives easier, and I've done this in my other videos, is to condense this entire line into something very simple. So it's going to look like constraints with format, and I'm going to use this as my sample here. So I want to condense this whole line here into just this and views of divider line view, right? So this is going to turn into this, pretty much. And how do we do that? Well, we will use an extension on UI view like this. So function add constraints with format. This will be format string and views of, let's see, view dot dot dot. That means I can specify views, a variable amount of views, either 1, 0, or as many as I want in here. So basically, I am going to copy this and paste that in there, and this will be this. So add constraints, this will be some kind of dictionary right here. So this views parameter is actually a views dictionary, like this, and then here will be the views dictionary. Views dictionary equals string to UI view, like that. And this format will be the actual parameter that we pass in up here. So format, and finally we have to iterate through our views array like this. So index view in views.enumerate, and then I'll populate this views dictionary like this. So views dictionary is some key equals view like that, and this key is actually the v0 key. So v index, and then that'll give me v0 for the first view and v1 for the second, and so on and so forth. So while we're at it, here we'll specify that to false, and then we should be good to go here. So this whole thing is replaced by this statement here, like that. So I'm going to run it, and I'm going to show you that the view is rendered exactly the same as it was before. So that's pretty good. Now I can actually remove this whole bit here, and basically I can just copy that and say add constraints with format, that, and this will be divider line view. So remove all this ugly code, and then this will use this format here, and now we're going to clean up everything. So that, and this will be profile image view, and this will also be the same constraint, but with v as the vertical axis. Oh wow. So the image and the horizontal line is just as it was before. You can also remove these two lines here. And now we've condensed all of that code into these simple 4 lines of constraints. So pretty good. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to show you something cool with constraints. So what I mean is, let me specify a height of 200 up here for each of those cells. And you notice that the line stays at the bottom, but the image is actually still clamped to the top. So I want to illustrate something here by centering this image into the center. And by that, I'm going to do this. So For the vertical constraints, if I remove that pipe, this is saying to have a height of 68 for this profile image view, and that's what it's going to render. The next thing I want to do is to add a constraint like this. So add a constraint, NS layout constraint. Actually, use initializer. Item will be profile image view. This attribute will be dot center y related by equals to item self. This will be center y again. Multiplier will be 1, constant of 0. And running that, I'm going to be able to center the profile image view to the center of its parent, which is this entire cell here. So that's how you easily specify centering for any type of view. And I'm going to use that to actually center this label and this message component, these two views here. I'm going to center it inside of a container view that is going to live closely to the center like this. And by that, what I mean is I am going to create a container view right, let's see, right here. So let's do setup container view as a function that is specified down here. So private func setup container view. And I'm going to use this area to set up a container view like this. So container view equals UI view. Okay, let's get this going. Yep. And then container view dot background color equals UI color of, let's just use red again. And then we'll add this into the subview hierarchy like that. And then we'll see what we get. So I haven't ran that. I don't believe we'll see anything. Okay, so that confirms my theory. And we will add constraints with format to see how to get this container view centered onto the screen. So specifying a horizontal left padding of, let's just use maybe even 90 will be okay. So let's use 90, and V0 will be this container view here. And let's see. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste and use vertical constraints of, let's see, no pipes, and this will be, let's say, 60. Okay. So having done that, I'm going to run this now and show you that the container view is 60 pixels tall, and it's having a left padding of 90. So its left edge is 90 pixels away from the left. And now the interesting part, I guarantee you it's going to be interesting. We're going to center it very similarly by just copying and pasting the center code here and paste that down here. This will be our container view. Just like that. Now that the red view has been center aligned, it's just appearing like so. So pretty good. Now let me just shrink this cell back down to 100 pixels so that it makes more sense and looks closer to kind of our application here. So the reason why I have this thing centered now is I can easily add the name label for the friend just by simply putting it inside of this container view. So I'm going to create the name label up here. So name label, UI label, let label equal UI label, label.text is friend name, and return the label like that. So having this label now, I can do this. So container view, add subview, name label, and I'm going to put that down here just so I can make sense of the code. So container view dot add constraints with format, and this will be horizontal constraints. Let's just expand it fully from left edge to right edge. This will be name label. So nothing too tricky yet. And also expand that vertically from top to bottom. It's pretty good. So this is actually centered because it's completely filling up the entire red box right here. And let's include this bottom message label now by creating it first up here. So let message label this label. I'm going to copy and paste this up here just to save ourselves a little bit of time. And this will be your friend's message, like that, and something else. I just wanted to make that text a little bit longer. Also, let's just change the label text color while we're at it. So equals UI color dot dark gray color. And here we can specify the container constraints. So container view, add subview, message label. Constraints will be this. Okay. Container view, add constraints with format. V0 will be the same. So spanning left to right will be the message label, like this. And then I can actually specify the message label inside of the vertical constraint right here. So what I mean is to do V1 of, let's just use 24 vertical pixels. And then at the very end, I can actually add in the message label like this, because this is actually a variable views array, and it allows us to add it like that. And here we get the name label for the friend and also the message directly underneath it. And I actually want to shrink this red bar because I think it's a little tall. So I'm going to shrink it by 10 pixels right now. And let's get rid of the red color as well. Now that we have a couple of views inside of it, gives us a good frame of reference as to where it's landing. And that looks pretty good. I actually want to change the font to maybe something a little bit bigger for the name. So label dot font equals UI font, system font of maybe 18. And I want to change the font of the message to something a little bit smaller instead. So UI font, system font of maybe 14. Let's see, oh, text color. So font, run, and here we have something a little bit smaller. I think the text color seems fine. Let's see, okay. And that looks okay so far. And I'm going to specify some padding for the message label right here. So message label, and let's use 12 for the right. And now it's having a little bit of breathing room on the right side. Looks a little bit better. And finally, I'm going to include this time label on the right like that. See. So what I mean is creating this time label here. So let time label equals all this good stuff. And I actually want to take the name label version. So time label is that. So this, for now, let's just say 12:05 p.m. And that gives me a time label. And let's add it onto the container view like this. So time label, pretty good. And here's what we're going to do. We know that it is on the same horizontal axes as the name label, so we can add it to the horizontal constraints for the name label by specifying v1. And this will be roughly 80 pixels wide, and it's going to hug the right edge like that. So it's a time label like this. And finally, we need a set of Vertical constraints. So add constraints with format and V. So V will be V0 of, let's just use 20 pixels for now. And no pipe at the end. This will be time label. And let's just use some padding after I run this to check if the time label is where we want it to be. Okay, the time label, the text, the font actually seems a little large. Let's shrink it down to 16. Also, let's see, if we specify this to, okay. That looks pretty good. And now our time label is in a pretty good position. I actually want to specify something else too. So I'm going to show you what happens if I change it to 120. And it's actually left aligned, this time label. Okay, so now notice that the time label font and the text is actually left aligned, and we want to push it to the right by specifying the label text alignment to dot right, like that. I'm going to run and see the time label is right aligned like so. The final thing we want to do is specify some actual, let's see, right padding like that. And let's just push it back to 80 pixels wide. Now running the application, time label is now sitting perfectly on the right edge with some breathing room to the right of it. Okay, that looks pretty good, and I think this is a pretty good stopping point for now. So let's just modify this friend's name to something other than friend's name. So Mark Zuckerberg. I'm going to run to show you that the name is actually sitting very prettily right there. I think the time label can be a little bit taller. So time label, let's see, time label, vertical constraints. And let's just use perhaps 24 like that. And what I'm looking at is actually the bottom alignment of this text and that text right there. So everything looks pretty good. There's actually a image view icon right there too that I actually want to put in. So let's just do that as well. And what I mean is by tabbing into this here, there's actually a very small image icon for whenever the friend reads your text. So let's just do this. Has read image view equals UI image view. And let's just do this right here. So we'll copy all of this code here and paste that here. We get our image view, our aspect fill like that. This will be corner radius of 10. And the reason why I put 10 is because I'm going to specify a width and height of 20. So let's do this. Container view, add subview, has seen, has a red. So has a red image view. And now we want to specify it to the right of the message label. So message label is here. The horizontal axis is here. And let's just do this. So 8 pixels of padding between the two components like that. And this will be, let's see, width of 20 like that. And the V1 view will be our has read image view, just like that. Finally, we will add the constraints of, add constraints with format, vertical constraints for the image view will be V0, 20, and it's going to be aligned to the bottom of this bottom pipe, the bottom edge like this, and the top edge is not specified. So has read image view. I'm going to run that and show you the image view sitting on the right. Okay, so it looks like I have something missing, which is this parentheses right there. Cool, looks pretty good. And the reason why it's not showing up yet is because it doesn't actually have an image. So I'm going to specify the image up here. I'm going to copy and paste that entire line and specify has red image view is also the same as the Zuck profile. And that's what we get. All right. So I think that looks pretty good, and it's a pretty good stopping point. The next video, we're going to introduce core data as some of the messages that we want to persist onto our disk. This means we're going to access the manage object context and actually store some entities inside of core data. So make sure to actually like the video if you've liked it, and obviously subscribe if you want to get a notification for when that video releases, most likely in a couple of days. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and enjoy your day and keep coding and keep getting better at iOS development. Bye-bye.